For years, they called my dream a joke, mocked every song. Then one track went viral and suddenly they were in the front row. You would not believe how it all happened. 28 years old, broke as hell, playing to half-empty bars where the only applause came from some guy clinking a glass behind the counter. My name is Lucas, and for as long as I can remember, music was the only thing that ever felt like mine. Not something handed down, not something expected, just this little fire I carried around in my chest, even when the rest of the world tried to stamp it out. And my family? They hated it. Thought it was a phase I was too dumb to grow out of. My dad used to say, "Dreams don't pay bills, son." And my mom? She would just roll her eyes any time I picked up my guitar. Told her friends I was finding myself, like I was some sad punchline at a dinner party. They wanted me in accounting, maybe tech support, something with benefits and a 401k. Not standing on stage at 2 in the morning, pouring my heart out to strangers who were too drunk to care. But I kept playing. I worked garbage jobs, stocking shelves, flipping eggs at diners, delivering takeout to kids who were living the life I used to imagine for myself. At night, I would write songs in this tiny apartment that smelled like old ramen and burnt coffee, the walls so thin I could hear my neighbor arguing with his girlfriend through drywall. I had duct tape on the windows to keep the cold out, and half the time, the heat would cut out anyway. I still wrote. Every lyric was a piece of me, every melody a way to scream without raising my voice. Some nights, I almost gave up. Hell, I would stare at the ceiling and think, maybe they were right. Maybe I should have just gotten that job at the auto shop like Dad wanted. But something kept me going. Maybe it was spite. Or maybe it was hope. A whisper that someday, someone might actually listen. And then it happened. One song. One video. A live clip, posted by some stranger at a local open mic, went viral overnight. The comments rolled in faster than I could read them. People were quoting my lyrics, sharing the track, saying it spoke to them. For the first time in my life, the sound I had been chasing was being heard. The messages kept coming. Then came the emails from agents, festival bookers, radio hosts. I blinked and suddenly, I had gigs lined up across the state. Then the country. Every week felt like a new level. But nothing prepared me for what came next, a concert that would change everything. The lights were brutal. Hot, white beams cutting through a sea of bodies, faces blurred in the crowd like paint strokes on a canvas I could barely make out. My heart was punching against my ribs as I stepped up to the mic stand. This was it. The big one. 40,000 people, maybe more. I had made it. Or at least, I thought I had. Until I saw them. Front row. VIP section. My dad, in his usual button-up, and that damn smug look he always wore when he thought he was right. My mom beside him, pretending like this was some family outing, like she had not spent years telling me I was wasting my life. And my sister, Laura, the one who used to mock my lyrics at the dinner table, smiling like she was proud. Proud. It hit me so hard, I almost missed my cue. I had imagined this moment so many times. But never like this. Not with them here, looking up at me like I was their son again. Like they had not skipped every single bar gig I ever invited them to. Like they had not deleted the Bandcamp link I emailed them without ever opening it. I used to beg them just to listen. Just once. I stopped asking after a while. Figured if they wanted to hear my music, they would find it on their own. And now, here they were. Not because they had changed. Not because they finally believed. No. They were here because the world had already told them I was worth something. And for a second, just one awful second, I wanted to stop the show. I wanted to call them out right there. Wanted to walk off that stage, down into the crowd, and tell them to go home. That they did not get to be here. Not now. Not when it was easy. But I didn't. Instead, I sang. I sang like my throat was bleeding. Like every word was a nail driven into the floorboard between us. I played the song that went viral, the one they had probably heard a million times by now but never understood. The crowd screamed. My voice cracked on the last note. I saw people crying in the front rows. And my dad? He clapped. Just a simple clap, like it was no big deal. Like this whole thing was normal. Like it had not taken 10 years of silence and scraping by just to get here. I walked off stage drenched in sweat and rage, my hands shaking. But I was not ready for what was waiting backstage. Can we talk for a second? My mother's voice was soft, like she was trying not to scare me. But it still cut deep. Deeper than she could possibly know. I stared at her for a long second, trying to find something in her face, regret, shame, maybe even pride, but it was just blank. Just that same calm, collected expression she wore at my high school graduation when she said, "Community college is fine." At least it is realistic. Back then, I had stood in our kitchen, holding a letter of acceptance to a music conservatory, practically shaking with excitement. She did not even look up from her coffee. Now she wanted a second chance? I nodded slowly, even though every bone in my body was screaming no. She led me toward one of the side halls, just past a line of folding chairs and some road cases. Somewhere quiet. As quiet as anything can be behind a music festival stage. She opened the folder. I expected photos. Maybe some clippings of me from online. What I saw instead made my stomach twist. It was a contract. Not just any contract. A publishing deal. I blinked at her, confused, and she said, "A friend of mine from the firm thinks your songwriting has real value. We can help you expand." We, she said. That word landed like a punch to the ribs. We. Like there had ever been a we in this dream. Like she had spent years co-writing songs with me in my freezing apartment, not doubting every single move I made. I asked her, flat out, "Why are you doing this now?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because I believe in you." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Not because I wanted to. It just spilled out of me, bitter and sharp, like I had been holding that laugh in for a decade. "No," I said. "You believe in the numbers." She did not deny it. Just folded the contract neatly and said, "Think about it. Your father and I are proud of you." That word again. Proud. Like some badge she could wear now that I had made it. I turned to leave. I could not even look at her anymore. But right before I walked away, she called out, "Lucas, wait. You should talk to your father." And that was when I realized something that hit even harder than the contract in her hands. They had come with a plan. This was not a family reunion. This was a business meeting. He stood there like he belonged. My older brother, Matt. The one who always had something slick to say, always knew how to twist the knife with a smile. His shirt was ironed, hair perfect like he had just walked out of a boardroom instead of wading into my life uninvited. He was holding my guitar, and I hated how normal it looked in his hands. Like he had been part of this all along. I stopped a few feet away and just stared. He lifted the guitar a little, like it was some peace offering, then leaned it back against the wall with more care than I expected. For a second, we just stood there in silence. Then he spoke. "Your stage manager handed it to me. Said you left it by the monitors." I nodded, still not saying anything. My throat was tight. He kept going, like he had rehearsed this. "You sounded good up there. Better than I thought you'd be. Better than he thought I would be." Like I needed his stamp of approval after years of him laughing every time I mentioned music. He was the one who cornered me at Thanksgiving the year I quit my job and said, "You'll come crawling back in 6 months." That was almost 5 years ago. Now here he was, backstage at my show, talking like none of that ever happened. "I was wrong," he said. "About everything." I waited, arms crossed. He shifted his weight, shoved his hands in his pockets. "Dad called me last week. Told me you were blowing up. Said maybe we should all come out and support you. Figured if you had finally done something big, it was worth showing up." He actually said those words, worth showing up. That right there told me everything I needed to know. Nothing had changed. Not really. I was not a person to them. I was a story. A headline. A brag. Matt reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of notebook paper. He hesitated, then held it out. "I found this. In your old room." I almost did not take it. But something made me reach. My fingers closed around it, rough from all the years of strumming. It was one of my old song drafts. From high school. Scrawled in pencil, the margins full of chord notes and crossed-out rhymes. I had not seen it in over a decade. "I used to read these," he said quietly, "when you weren't home." That stopped me. Just for a second. A piece of me, a small, cautious piece, wanted to believe he meant it. That maybe, somewhere under the jabs of mockery, there had been a spark of something real. Maybe even pride. But I remembered too much. I remembered him stealing my notebook and reading my lyrics out loud to his friends like it was a joke. I remembered the Christmas when he gave me a job application instead of a gift. I folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket without a word. "Thanks for bringing the guitar," I said, and turned to go. "You don't have to shut us out, you know," he called after me. I stopped. "You already shut me out," I said. "You just did it early." I stared at the message like it was breathing. The words burned through the screen. "I know what you did to get here." So does she. No name. No number. Just black letters on a gray bubble, as cold as it was specific. My hands started to sweat. I had not seen those words in years, not together, not in that order. I sat down on the edge of the couch, the stage noise muffled behind the concrete walls. The guitar rested beside me, strings humming faintly from being moved. She. There was only one person that could mean Claire. We had not spoken in 3 years. She was the only one who ever saw the real chaos behind the grind. The long nights when I stole food off catering trays because I was too broke to eat. The time I used her student ID just to sneak into the campus studio. She had covered for me, lied for me, even loaned me her beat-up keyboard when mine finally gave out. And then I left her behind. Not in some dramatic way. Not with shouting or slamming doors. I just ghosted. One day I stopped answering her texts. I stopped showing up at open mics we used to go to together. I even blocked her email. All because I got one shot at a session gig with a producer who said, "You're talented, but you're too distracted." He meant Claire. He said I needed to be hungry, not emotional. Cut everything that was not part of the dream. So I did. And that dirty little secret? The one I never told anyone? My first big song, the one that went viral, used her lyrics. Not all of them. Just the hook. A line she scribbled in a notebook one night when we were drunk on gas station wine and making jokes about terrible country songs. "You can't love me if you never let me go." She said it as a throwaway line. I turned it into a chorus. I never gave her credit. Never told a soul where it came from. And now someone knew. I stared at the message again, heart racing. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was just someone fishing. But then I scrolled down and saw the second message. "Meet me at the old laundromat. Midnight. Come alone." No signature. Just coordinates disguised as nostalgia. That laundromat? That was where Claire and I wrote our first full song. We used to sit on the busted orange benches with our backs against the dryers, notebooks in our laps, humming over the sound of tumbling denim. I looked at the clock. 11:24. I had 36 minutes to decide if I was going to bury this thing for good, or finally face it. And for the first time in years, I was not sure if I was the hero in my own story anymore. She looked exactly the same. Not in some romanticized way. I mean it literally, same jean jacket, same dark curls tied up in that lazy knot she always wore when she was done pretending to care what people thought. Claire never dressed for approval. That was part of why I fell for her. She had this quiet kind of rebellion that made everything feel possible. And now she was holding the damn notebook like it was a loaded weapon. The wind blew hard down the alley, pushing gravel in tiny streams. I stopped a few feet away and said her name. She did not answer. Just stared. The notebook was the same one we used to pass back and forth like a secret language. Lyrics, grocery lists, inside jokes, whole summers written in cheap ink. The cover had a red wine stain from that night we got kicked out of a poetry slam for heckling a guy who rhymed despair with Tupperware. Claire held it tighter and finally said, "You took my line." It was not a question. I swallowed. Everything in me wanted to defend it. Say I adapted it, polished it, made it mine. But I couldn't. Not when she was standing right there with the original in her hands. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I did." She nodded once, like she had already made peace with the truth. Then her voice changed. Softer, but not weaker. "You left me broke, Lucas. You left me alone. And then you made me famous without even saying my name." Those words sank deep. I had never heard it put like that before. But she was right. I made my name on the back of a story that was not mine to tell alone. I looked down at the pavement and said, I was scared. That I'd lose the shot. That if I brought you with me, I'd blow it. "Funny," she said, "because I would have gone with you even if we lost." There was no anger in her voice. That was what killed me the most. She was not here to scream. She was here to let go. Claire held out the notebook. I took it, hands trembling. My thumb brushed over her old handwriting, so familiar it hurt. "There's more in there," she said. "Songs we never finished. Ideas you buried. I figured you should have them." I shook my head. "No," I told her. "You should publish them. Under your own name. Tell your own story." She raised an eyebrow, like she did not quite believe me. "I mean it," I said. "I've been lying to myself for years, thinking I made it here alone. But I didn't." Claire gave a small, tired smile. "Glad you finally caught up." She turned to leave, pulling her jacket tighter against the wind. I almost called out, asked her to stay. But something in me knew this was not about fixing what we had. This was about finally telling the truth. I looked down at the notebook again. Flipped to the page with that chorus. Her handwriting, messy and alive. "You can't love me if you never let me go." And in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do next. The second he stepped into the room, the air shifted. My old producer, Trent Holloway, balding, with that slick leather jacket he always wore even indoors, like he thought it gave him some kind of authority. He was the first person in the industry to take a chance on me, and the first to make me sign something without fully reading it. He closed the door behind him with that slow, theatrical pull, then looked at me like I was a roach on his countertop. "So," he said, "you're pulling the song?" My manager glanced between us, nervous. I just nodded. "I'm giving Claire full credit for the chorus. And I'm pulling the track until that's done." Trent tilted his head. "After all this time? That hook is the only reason you even have a career." There it was, the truth behind his smile. He did not see me as an artist. He saw me as a product, a story he could sell. I stood my ground. "She wrote it. I took it. That's the truth." He scoffed, reached into his coat, and pulled out a folder. "You signed over creative rights. Clause 12. Anything included in a registered work becomes property of the label unless contested within 6 months. That window's gone, buddy." I had forgotten about that clause. Of course he remembered it. Of course he was counting on me staying quiet. But something was different now. I pulled out Claire's notebook, set it down on the desk between us. "Then we'll do it the hard way," I said, "because this proves I didn't write that chorus." Trent leaned over, reading the page, eyes narrowing. "This means nothing. Could have been forged. She still has the original file on her phone, dated months before we recorded. Text with the lyrics. Timestamps." His jaw twitched. My manager finally spoke up. "Trent, if this goes public, it's bad press. For the label. For everyone. Maybe we should fix it clean." But Trent was not listening. He was staring at me like I was some punk kid who forgot his place. "You want to throw away your biggest hit over a line?" he asked. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm fixing it because that line was never mine to claim." He glared for a second longer, then snapped the folder shut and walked out, muttering something under his breath about entitled kids and their damn morals. My manager exhaled, long and loud. "You realize this could cost you your slot at the next festival," he said. I nodded. "Then I'll write another song. One that's mine." He stared at me for a long second. Then he smiled. "About time." The notification popped up just after midnight, right as I was trying to fall asleep on the hotel mattress that felt more like a cardboard box than a bed. My phone buzzed with one alert after another. Comments, tags, reposts. Hashtag Claire wrote it was everywhere. I assumed Claire had started it. Maybe one of her friends. Maybe some diehard music fan digging into the lyrics. But when I clicked the original tweet, my whole chest locked up. It came from Laura, my sister. The same sister who used to laugh at my demo CDs and tell our cousins I would probably end up working mall security. She was the one who skipped every gig, posted those passive-aggressive, proud of my brother for finally getting a job jokes when I signed with the label. Now she had posted a photo of Claire's notebook, the chorus circled in red, with the caption, "Truth matters." My brother should have said this himself years ago, but credit where it's due. Hashtag Claire wrote it. I just stared at the screen. That one post had over 30,000 likes. She had tagged Claire. She had tagged the label. She had tagged me. For a second, I thought maybe it was a joke. Another one of her sharp digs dressed as support. But then the second post came through, this one quieter. "For what it's worth, I used to hear you playing in the garage. Every night. I just didn't know how to say I was proud back then. Maybe I still don't. But I'm trying." I did not know what to feel. That post hit harder than I wanted to admit. Because the truth was, as angry as I had been at my family, part of me had always wanted just one of them to say it. "You mattered. You were right to chase it. Even if it came years too late, even if it took a public mess to pull it out, there it was." That night, Claire reposted the tag with a simple message of her own. "Lucas and I both made mistakes. But the best songs come from truth. This one belongs to both of us now." And just like that, everything shifted. The fans did not cancel me. They doubled down. Not because I was flawless, but because I owned it. Because I gave credit where it was due. Because I let someone else stand in the spotlight with me. The next day, the festival called. They still wanted me, but with a condition. They asked if I would perform the song with Claire. I stared at the message for what felt like an hour. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Every version of the text sounded wrong, too formal, too casual, too late. In the end, I just typed. "They want us both. One mic. Your song too. What do you say?" And I waited. It was nearly dawn when she finally replied. "One condition. I get to sing the chorus." I laughed, sitting alone in that dim hotel room with the city still asleep outside. That was so her simple, sharp, no drama. She was not asking to rewrite history, just to reclaim the part that was hers. The festival confirmed within the hour. We were bumped to a prime slot. One of the headliners. That night, I stood backstage again. Same nerves buzzing in my chest, but everything felt different. My parents were in the crowd somewhere. I had not spoken to them since the night of the contract offer. I told security not to allow anyone with their last name backstage. Not to be petty, just to protect the space I was finally learning to own. Claire stood beside me, tuning her guitar. She looked focused, but calm. No bitterness. Just this quiet resolve that I had missed for years. We did not say much. Did not need to. When they called our names, the roar of the crowd hit like a wave. We walked out together, side by side. I introduced the song. I told the truth. Said the chorus was hers. Said the success was not mine alone. That real music, the kind that sticks in people's ribs, always comes from the mess you do not want to talk about. Then I stepped back. Claire took the mic. And when she sang that chorus, "You can't love me if you never let me go," I saw thousands of hands in the air. People crying. Cheering. Not for me. For us. It was not about redemption. It was about honesty. The kind that echoes louder than any amplifier. We finished the song. I stepped to the edge of the stage, wiped my face, and looked out at the crowd. That was when I saw them. My family. Still front row. But this time, I did not feel anger, or shame, or even the old ache of wanting to be seen. I just saw them as people. Flawed. Late. But there. My dad was not clapping. He was just standing there, arms crossed. My mom's eyes were glassy. My sister? She had her phone out, probably live streaming. But I was done performing for them. The afterglow of the stage lights was still burning in my eyes when we stepped backstage. I could feel it in my bones, the high, the silence that follows the noise. That stillness, it used to scare me. Now it felt like peace. Claire was beside me, unplugging her guitar. She did not say much. Neither did I. But that silence? It felt earned. My phone buzzed again, voicemails from my dad, a text from my mom, one from my sister with a photo attached. It was me and Claire, mid-performance. The caption read, "First time I saw you. Really saw you. You were meant for this." I did not know what to say. I just saved the photo and powered my phone down. We walked out to the back lot, where the black vans idled with their engines humming, waiting to take artists back to wherever their lives picked up again. But I was not ready to get in yet. Neither was Claire. She leaned against the fence and looked up at the sky, eyes half closed. "Feels like we buried something tonight," she said. I nodded. "And dug something up, too." She smiled. Not a full one. Just a corner lift. But it was real. She pulled something from her jacket and held it out. "The notebook." I frowned. "I thought that was yours." She shook her head. "It always belonged to both of us. Even the ugly parts." I took it, slow. Held it like something sacred. "You going to write again?" she asked. I nodded. But different this time. From the truth. Not from the hunger. She looked at me one last time, then said, "Good. Then maybe this time, you won't have to sing alone." Then she walked away. No dramatic exit. No big goodbye. Just a quiet ending. And you know what? That was perfect. I did not go after her. I did not check my phone. I just stood there for a while, holding that old notebook against my chest, feeling the weight of it all, every lyric, every fight, every night spent doubting myself. My family had shown up for the big moment, sure, but it was the little ones that built me. The nights in the freezing apartment, writing until my fingers cramped. The bar shows where only 2 people clapped. The mornings where I almost quit and then didn't. That was the real story. And I was finally done seeking applause from people who only knew how to clap when the crowd did. The next album? It would be called The Front Row. But not for them. For everyone who believed before it was cool. Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. See you next time.